Hello, Professor Lapidus. This is Emma Pearson, and this is my midterm assessment regarding blood pressure and its relationship, blood pressure type and its relationship to age, or age and its relationship to blood pressure type. So before beginning, I took a look at the data that we were given, and there's a couple of things that I noticed right away. So one of the things that I noticed and observed was that there were more people tested in groups 30 to 49 and in the group over 50 than there was in group 30 under 30. And you can just simply look at that and figure that out by seeing the numbers on the side here and seeing that those tested in groups under 30 was less than 100, and between 100 and 179, or where is it? 100 and 178. So you can see that those numbers are larger. One of the other things that I noticed in groups over 50 was people had a high number of those tested in normal as well as high blood pressure type. So I thought that that was pretty interesting, but it does make sense since there was more people tested as well. And then moving on, we're just going to highlight the data here. Sometimes you can do that just by clicking on the side. And then what we're going to do, I'm just going to draw this over so that we can answer some of these questions. And I'm going to make this a little bit larger so we can see everything that we're working with up here. First, I want to point out that there's two options for pivot table and pivot chart. I don't want to choose this one because it comes with a graph built in, and I want to choose my own graph to work with. I do want to choose a bar graph, but we'll get to that later. So I'm going to start here. And it makes this line go around the data so that we know that it's highlighted and what we're working with. I do want it to be on a new worksheet, and you can see here from sheet 1, A1 to B475. So I'm just going to press OK, and it's going to bring us to a new sheet. And this image that it gives us is a little wonky. So what we're going to do here is we're going to highlight, and then it gives us this. And we can see in rows that age is already highlighted, or age is already represented in the chart or in the table. So then we're going to take blood pressure and bring it right down there. And then we can see that it gives us all this extra data here. And that's what we want to be working with. So we can immediately see, observing some of the, looking at some of the tentative conclusions that I made, that there was more people tested in these two groups here than there was in this group. And that it did seem like there was a large number of those over 50 who had high blood pressure and normal blood pressure type. So normal was the most common blood pressure type of those over 50. I thought that that was pretty interesting. I was originally inclined to think that it would be high blood pressure, but it does make sense that not everyone over 50 typically has high blood pressure. They're just more common overall. So let's go down and answer some of these questions. And I'm going to pull out this calculator here just so that we can visualize it and you can see how I'm obtaining these numbers. So what is the probability of picking a person at random from the sample and having that person be over 50 with normal blood pressure? So over 50, and then we move over to the normal blood pressure. We know that we're going to be working with this number here, 93. And then what we want to do is we want to divide that by the overall group because we want to know what's the probability of picking somebody from this sample of the overall data sample. So we're going to divide that by 474, and we're going to get this number here. And I'm going to be working with the nearest fourth decimal place, so I'm going to move that over. We know that that represents 19%, so 19.62%. I'm going to go ahead and put that right here. And that is the probability. We could also represent this as a fraction, but that is a really big fraction. So that would be 98 divided by 474. And we can divide that by 2. That, I think that would be the easiest that we can do, is break it down to about 49 divided by over 237 if we wanted to represent it as a fraction. So I'm just going to go ahead and leave that and leave it at the percentage. Next, we want to see what is the percentage of people, all people, that are under 30. So we know again that we're working with this column right here. We would add these up, which it already does that for us in Excel, and we get that number 98. So we're going to enter 98, and again we're going to divide it by the total, and we get 0.20675. So I want to round that up to 0.2068 and represent that as a percentage, because it's asking us what the percentage is, not what the decimal is. So we're going to say 20.68%. And then next, what is the most likely blood pressure for a person over 50? This one we can easily just look at the data and see that that is the highest number. That is the most likely blood pressure for a person over 50. We can also see that 73 is pretty high, but it's obviously not more than 93. So we're going to put normal. Normal is the most likely blood pressure type for a person over 50. Next, what I want to do is I want to represent this as percentages. So I'm going to just highlight that. I'm going to copy it. And then just below it, I'm going to paste it. And then we have this new one here. I want to show these values as the percentage of grand total. There's a lot of different options here where we can do parent, percent of parent column, percent of parent row, but we're going to do this one here and see what it looks like as percentages and see if we were right. And I was. So 19.62%. And for the percent of all people under 30 is 20.68%. And then the most likely blood pressure for a person over 50, again, we could just see that this percentage is higher relative to the other two percentages for the people over 50. So we know that that is normal. And next, what I want to do is make a graph. Now, there's a lot of different options here. I chose this one here, this bar graph, because what we're doing is we're comparing data. I originally wanted to choose a different graph, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But the reason why I chose this one is because it gives a very clear representation of the different groups, but also the different blood pressure types. It's easy to visualize, it's easy to understand. And then we can also do that with the counts as well, counts and percentages. So I just want to shrink that down a little bit and move it up. And then we're going to add some labels here. And you can see that the difference is counts on the side and percentages on the side over here. So first we're going to start with this one, the percentages, and we are going to design it. We're going to add a title for the chart, and we want the title to represent exactly what we're doing. Correlation between BP type and age. And then we want to add axis titles, age grouping, and then we want to add axis title for the Y. And we'll just put percentages. And we can do the same for the count. Over here, And we'll make sure to add a title. So it really just depends on how you want to represent it. If you want to represent it with the counts on the side, if you really want to visualize each individual person in the group, or if you want to see what those counts represent as percentages. And actually, I'm going to leave that there. And we'll do the same for the axis titles, except this one. Oop. Let's see if we can undo that. Back to design. It doesn't seem to want to. There we go. We can even do individual. Oop, made that look a little. And then down here, we'll do the same. We can say age grouping or grouping by age. Okay, so there we have two graphs. We can either do it with percentages or we can do it with the individual counts, just as long as it's clear and representative of comparing the data and visualizing the relationship between them. We can also move some of these in different orders if we wanted to. I left it like that because it was in alphabetical order. We could change it up and make it in order by age. And again, the reason why I did not choose, I originally wanted to choose a pie chart because I really enjoy how pie charts represent percentages, and we could have done that if we wanted to. But the reason why I did not do that is because when you see what you get here, it only shows one group of blood pressure type, and it would only represent that blue bar there, and we couldn't see the relationship between each group, each blood pressure type. So that is why I did not choose that, and why I ended up just choosing working with the bar graph, because it's easy to visualize, it's easy to work with, and it's a clear representation of the data. So I hope that helps, and have a great day. Thank you for viewing my presentation.